ahead. Okay, recording in progress. Cool. Next item on the agenda is roll call. Mr. Secretary, can you do the roll call, please?
Yes, I sure can, Chair. From Notice on Chapter, Patricia Blackhorn.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Darlene Pino. Okay, Ella Bedani. Again, *6 to unmute if you're online. Moving on to Jato Chapter, Willis Begay. Jean Holiday. Marietta Bedoni.
Present,
Thank you. Moving on to Shanto Chapter,
thank you.
Roland. Small
Here.
Canyon. Thank you.
President,
Marcia Gray Eyes.
Here.
Thank you. Robert Black Jr. Elizabeth Whitethorn Benally. Sorry.
Here.
Thank you. Moving on to Tsapi Kin, Geraldine Chi. Chancy Notestein.
Present. Present.
Okay, thank you very much. Dellard Curley is here. Earl Sombrero. Okay, moving on to Honorable Herman Daniels.
Good afternoon, present.
Thank you very much. Dr. Pearl Yellerman.
Good afternoon. This is Shayla Draper with DCD, Division of Community Development, is on call. Thank you.
Thank you. Calvin Sosi. Okay. With that, Chair, we have a total of one.
Here, this is
Eight.
Darlene Pino from Notice on.
Oh.
Vice President, I am here. I apologize. I was on a meeting call, but I am present. Thank you.
Okay. With that, Chair, we have a total of 9.
okay. Thank you, staff, for doing the roll call. Although I believe we have some people that maybe they're representing Club C, or I see Mr. Miles. Can you introduce yourself, who you're representing, please? I believe Mr. Miles
Is Club C for Napa.
Okay, thank you, sir. I see. Okay, let down names I don't recognize. Shudit Loretta Small Canyon.
Yes, I am from Navajo Mountain Club C member.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And then Miss Cheryl Coley, she's our North representative. Chita. SCG. Yeah, and then I think Sheila Draper is representing Dr. Yellowman. Sheila. Okay. Mr. Stanley
President.
Mr. Stanley Yazzie, he's our West representative, South representative.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, let's get on the meeting, going back to the agenda number item 4, ARPA project update by Dr. Pearl Yellowman. Ms. Draper, how do you want to do this to make the best use of our time with you? Or on the ARPA, do you want to do your presentation first and then ask questions later?
Yes, we can get into the presentation. Before we get into the presentation, would the participants be requesting the full presentation of the ARPA allocations or just specific sections pertaining to the Appendix A, the request for ARPA funding?
Okay. With that, you have the floor, Ms. Draper.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. We will begin by navigating to the nndcd.org website. Upon arriving to the DCD website, you will notice a very large red button on the right-hand side of the screen, and you'll click on the button where it says click here for more DCD ARPA information. It will navigate you to the American Rescue Plan Act website. And at the very top, we have the home button, followed by the council delegate listing. And right next to the council delegate list is the website for the CJN-29-22. The resolution was signed on July 15, 2022. The resolution is available here on our website for viewing and downloading. It's 226 pages. Right below the resolution CJN 2922, we have the DCD presentation slide that we'll be presenting this afternoon. And it begins with instructions on how to navigate the nndcd.org website. The website, clicking on the very large button and navigating to the CJN 2922 website. And instructions on how to download and print the legislation CJN-2922. Followed by a picture of the day the legislation was signed into law in Crown Point, New Mexico. And the legislation pertains sections 3, chapter and regional projects for LGA and non-LGA certified chapters. The allocation for this section 3 is $211,256,148, and the funding recipients identified as the LGA certified chapter, DCD or other, and the administrative oversight is DCD or other, and the legislative oversight states will identify. The next section DCD is responsible for within the legislation CJN 2922 will be assisting with section 4, public safety. DCD will be assisting public safety with the scope of work pertaining to the rural addressing projects. And Mr. MC Baldwin was the point of contact for the rural addressing projects. The next section DCD is responsible for is section 9, the electric connections to homes. Electric connections to homes received $96,400,000 allocation. The funding recipients identified as DCD and the administrative oversight as the Navajo Nation Fiscal Recovery Fund Office, NNFRF for short, and the legislative oversight is RDC. The next section DCD is responsible for within the CJN 2922 legislation is section 10, CHID housing, community housing infrastructure. Allocations received in the amount of $50 million to the Community Housing Infrastructure Department with the administrative oversight by Division of Community Development, and the legislative oversight is the RDC committee. The next section DCD is responsible for within the CJN 2922 is section 10, housing manufacturing. Housing manufacturing received $30 million allocation. The funding recipients identified as Community Housing Infrastructure Department, CHID for short, and the administrative oversight is Division of Community Development, DCD. Legislative oversight is the RDC committee. The next sections DCD is responsible for within the CJN 2922 is section 10, Bennett Freeze housing. Bennett Freeze housing received $15,550,000 allocation. The funding recipient is Navajo Hopi Land Commission, NHLC for short, and the administrative oversight is DCD, Division of Community Development. Legislative oversight is the RDC committee. The next section DCD is responsible for within the CJN 2922 is section 11, bathroom additions. The bathroom additions received $150 million allocation. The funding recipients identified as DCD, and the administrative oversight is the Navajo Nation Fiscal Recovery Fund Office, NNFRF for short, and the legislative oversight is the RDC committee. In total, the legislation CJN 29-22 allocated $1,070,298,867.00 within the legislation. Within the legislation, CJN 2922 allocated $403,206,148.00 to the Division of Community Development, DCD for short. The $403 million must be encumbered by September 30th, 2024. Carrying on of the overview of CJN 29-22 under section 2 findings, purposes of the ARPA funds. Number 1, purposes of the ARPA funds is to support COVID-19 public health and economic response by addressing COVID-19 and its impacts on public health. The purposes of the ARPA funds. Number 2, to provide premium pay to eligible workers performing essential work. Purposes of the ARPA funds. Number 3, to provide government services up to the amount of revenue loss due to the pandemic. Purposes of the ARPA funds. Number 4, to make necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Carrying on under section C, chapter and regional projects. Section 3, approval of the chapter and regional projects expenditure plan. Within CJN 2922, you may see Exhibit C, the total allocation of $211,256,148.00 to be divided equally between the 24 delegate regions in the amount of $8,802,340.00. The delegate region shall meet all Navajo Nation chapters, and the 50-50 chapter distribution formula does not apply because these are federal funds and not Navajo Nation funds. Are there any questions on these section on the slide, section C for chapter and regional projects. For no questions, we will carry on with.
Okay,
section C.
Shayla,
Yes.
this is Earl from Tsapikin. I know that this question I've been posing and I've been waiting for clarifications in regards to the projects that are funded within our region. I know that those projects, like for example, you're talking about the bathroom additions, the house wiring, and I believe there was electrification. I've been asking who is listed on those projects because right now, as it is, I just submitted projects and our proposals for certain projects from my community. And I was not sure whether or not those that I listed were already listed with these projects that are funded. So I'm not sure if you have information or any details onto who's listed on the projects that are being funded to NTOA and NECA in regards to the house wiring, the bathroom additions, and the electrification. And then if so, then is there a way that we can get that listing so that we can compare it to the listings that we have in regards to our proposals that we had submitted? And then the other thing was in talking to these things, I believe we're told that we need to include budget forms in along with our proposals. And then there's other attachments that are being asked to be attached to the proposal. So I kind of was trying to get clarifications as to what it was referred to as Appendix J. I'm not sure what that is, but if I don't know if you know what that Appendix J is, and if you would have a copy of it, and then maybe if you could forward that to me, I would also appreciate that. But as far as my question is, I don't know if you guys know who's listed on these projects that are funded through the ARPA fund. So
Thank you for your question, Earl. We are coordinating with NTUA the information that we received for house wiring and the electrification projects. We forwarded that listing over to NTUA, and NTUA, we've been having several work sessions this past week, and they were stating that they were having, due to confidentiality, they were having issues sending out that client listing per chapter region, and they needed to send out waivers, approvals to the clients, allowing them to share their information with the chapter. And it's until they receive that document signed by the client stating that it's okay to share their information with the chapter. Thereafter, NTUA will then release the client listing to the chapter. It is taking time for NTUA's team to gather those release forms per client, per chapter regions. And in the essence of time, some chapters are just sending their client listing directly to NTUA, and NTUA is simply checking off the ones that they have listed on file at the NTUA office. And the ones that are not listed, they'll respond back to the chapter stating that these clients are not on the NTUA client list for services. So that was the response that we received from NTUA from chapters requesting the client list that they received for house wiring, electric power line connections, and also including the bathroom additions. If the bathroom addition is the combo unit where they're have NTUA involved with the services, they're also getting those release forms to clients as well. So in this essence of time, I would recommend to send your client listing, Earl, over to NTUA, and they can simply just check off the ones that they have on file there, rather than to go through the timely process of getting those release forms signed from the client. Earl, does that help answer your question?
Yeah, that answers the question. I just wish they would hurry.
Okay. In
Miss-
the presentation, I get a little bit further into the preparation of the Appendix A, and if the group is okay, we can proceed directly to the Appendix A portion of the presentation.
Fine by me.
Okay. So I will navigate directly to the technical assistance area. And I'll just scroll through these presentation slides, and the presentation's available on our website. I'll simply go over to the U.S. Department of Treasury expenditure categories. Do we have any questions from the participants online on the 7 expenditure categories? No responses on the expenditure categories, so everyone has an understanding of the 7 expenditure categories. There are 88 subcategories total, and only 1 expenditure category may be referenced on the Appendix A application. And where to find the Appendix A application? The preparer, you will go to the frf.navajo-nsn.gov/resolutions, where you will obtain fillable copies of the Appendix A forms. The Appendix A fillable forms, there's 1 fillable form for government units, number 2 fillable form for non-government certified chapters, number 3, a fillable form for government certified chapters. Number 4, Navajo Nation owned entities fillable form. And number 5, external entities fillable form. And also the Navajo Nation DOJ request for services fillable form. Those are located on the FRF website at the website link here. And coming to the website, you'll click on resolutions and you'll identify the type of Appendix A application that you are requesting for. And this is what the request for services form looks like on the FRF website when you open it. It begins with the internal tracking and monitoring stamp Department of Justice uses per each submission. And the request for services form is locked, and the only ones that are unlocked is the date of request. The preparer will insert the date there, and then the funding request is for the preparer will enter the amount of ARPA fundings requested here, and then for project name, project title will go here, and then you will reference that 1 expenditure category right here on the RFS form. And there are only 2 submittals for DOJ to review the Appendix A application to see if the project is eligible to receive ARPA funds. And on the second submittal, if Department of Justice requests a different additional information and you provide that additional information, that will be considered the second submittal. And that's where you will hit resubmittal here on the checkbox if that is that additional information is being submitted, and that will be considered the second resubmittal. And at that time, the Department of Justice will deem the project eligible or ineligible to receive ARPA funding request. The Appendix A application I'm displaying on the screen is for non-government certified chapters, and it begins with Part 1, identification of the parties. In this section, highlighted in blue, in the blue box, the preparer will identify the name of the non-government certified chapter requesting FRF funds. They'll provide the response here, and then they'll indicate the date the Appendix A was prepared here, followed by the chapter's mailing address in this section, the phone and email here, the website if applicable. And this form is prepared by, the preparer will identify their name here, followed by the phone and the email address here in this section. That completes the box, the blue box here. Moving on to the orange box is where the preparer will insert the title and type of project name. The name will go here. And that concludes it for the orange box. Moving into the purple box here, the preparer will identify the chapter president's name here and provide the phone and email address here. The preparer will also identify the chapter vice president's name here, phone and email address here for the chapter vice president, the chapter secretary's name here, phone and email address here, the chapter treasurer's name provided here, the phone and the email address provided here in this box. The chapter manager or the CSC's name will go here, and the phone and the email will go in this box here. Excuse me. The next is the DCD and chapter ASO. Their name will go here, followed by the phone and the email address here. And that completes it for the purple box. And we move on to the green box here at the bottom, and it states list types of subcontractors or subrecipients that will be paid with FRF if known. If the preparer has already identified the subrecipient or subcontractor they'd be working with for the project, they will identify that name here. If there's a supporting document for this response, the preparer will check the checkbox document attached and provide it behind the Appendix A application. The next question is amount of FRF requested. The preparer will insert the amount of FRF funds requested in this box. And the next question says FRF funding period. The FRF funding period would be the date of the notice to proceed to December 30th, 2026. 2026 is the year and when the project must be 100% completed and operational. Before we move on to part 2 of the Appendix A application, are there any questions from the online participants for part 1, identification of the parties at this time?
Miss
Ms.
Draper, I have a question. This is One Small Canyon. Say, for the non-certified chapters that have don't have any CSC or managers, are they filling this out, or are the officials filling these out? Or the Appendix A?
If there's no chapter staff, the ASC SPPS are assisting with preparations along with myself, Shayla Draper, assisting with preparations of the Appendix A application.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
And
Would you
Ms.
like to
Draper,
schedule a session?
I also recommend Yacht and Delegate Daniels and chapter officials and staff. I also recommend that we work with ASC to see if the SPPS staff could also serve as additional backup to these forms. There are some SPPS staff who are in acting administrative roles. So if we need to identify those chapters, I'll work with ASC to help with some additional backup. Thank you.
Ms. Draper, also we have a question in the chat. Ms. Gray Eyes is asking if the expenditure covers Head Start programs.
The Head Start program would be, you would use the government units the government unit expenditure plan. Going back to the FRF website where you can locate the fillable forms for the Head Start, the preparer, you'll utilize the government unit forms here. You'll utilize this fillable form.
What would be the category or the expenditure category would we apply that under?
The expenditure category number would depend on the scope of work for the project. If you would like to share that information, we can look at our expenditure categories and see where it would best fall under. And for the
Okay.
Head Start, what type of funding request would be for the Head Start?
That, I think we'll probably have to come back on as we're waiting for a meeting. But as long as I know that the expenditure categories does cover some of the Head Start programs and what item we need to fill out, I think that'd be good for now.
Okay.
Sheila, I have a comment on that. I know that we just got an email a while ago requesting us to kind of put into their funds for our Head Start centers. I'm not sure what Head Start is doing as far as, I mean, I know it's a part of our community and that we should be advocating and so forth in regards to making sure that our centers are operating and then up to par for operations. However, we're just a limited number of staff that, have to think about a whole lot of other things that are at a community level. And with this request, I'm kind of interested to know, how Head Start is not able to do these things on their own behalf. And always seems like they're relying on the chapters to do these things for them. And then also I understand that we should be working together to try to improve the services to our community members. But right now we're primarily kind of focused on the shortfalls that we have for the different community projects that we've had been planning for, and this is an opportune time for us to try to get our projects into these things so that we can have them funded to where we don't have to worry anymore about it in the future. And so with our Head Start, the only reason why it's not open is due to the fact that there's no teacher for the Head Start. So the last teacher that we had retired. So after that, I'm not sure if they had re-advertised for the position. So I believe that's the only reason that our Head Start Center is not in full operation, is because they don't have the staff, not just the teacher, but the cook and the driver for the bus and so forth. So I think that they're having a hard time trying to fill those positions. So that's why our center is down. So, but I think that I know that we should primarily focus on our proposals, but we're kind of hit with that also at this time, because only Shanto, I'm not sure. I know that Navajo Mountain does have a Head Start Center as well, but I'm not sure if they're wanting to throw that in there too. But it would have been nice to have had this opportunity to talk about Head Start before we submitted our proposals. But I guess my question is why is Head Start waiting in until the last minute? Why couldn't they have brought this before us and before we started submitting proposals for the ARPA funds that are entailed for our region? So and then also I guess the other thing is there have nobody to do these things for them, or what's going on? I know you probably won't answer those questions, but those are my questions regarding Head Start. But that's it.
Okay, thank you, Earl, for that background on the Head Start. It lacking the staff for it to be fully operational and functional. And you mentioned the teachers needed along with the cook, the administration staff, and the bus driver. Out of the 8.8 million, is the Navajo Mountain, are you going to be putting in requests for staffing for the Head Start?
I think, I'm sorry to chime in, but Elsie, I think she might have more background on this. So I think Elsie, if you could provide that. I don't think this one's pertaining to staffing issues. I think it's more of, actually, I'm not really too sure. I shouldn't be the one asking that question, but I guess Elsie, she has her hand raised.
Okay.
I'm not too sure if she might have background on that.
Chair, am I allowed?
Yes, Deji, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, good early evening. Yautesha Nautanis, I see NOST chapter representatives and subcommittees on the call, as well as Navajo Nation DCD, Delegate Daniels, and some community members. I'm sorry, Shayla, I'm gonna go ahead and provide a little bit of information on the Head Start issue. Like everyone else, this was sprung on me today, as I explained in an email that I sent out earlier. I got a call from Dodie Head, Mr. What's his name? Jonathan Hale. So he called after he had received an issue or a concern from a local constituent from the Upton area. Apparently this parent had concerns, and I guess she didn't like the fact that the Head Start Center was not being used and that the kids in the area needed the facility to be open and used, but due to the building being not occupiable because of the fact that this foundation is cracked due to soil erosion and the ground shifting. So that was trying to be explained to this particular person, but I guess she just went over it and said that, the chapter's not doing anything, nobody's providing answers. But there has always been that discord between entities, who is responsible for certain services in the area, in this case, the Head Start Center. The other part of that too is that Shanto Center is also closed down because OEH, I guess, found some findings. So all of that just came to light to me this afternoon. And since this ARPA funding is in the works right now, Mr. Hill thought that, okay, maybe the chapters can submit a proposal for this funding. But I had explained to him already that the 4 NOST chapters were already, they had already submitted their proposals with the first deadline of mid-September. And then it went through the initial review process with FRF, which Mr. Potero had responded back to each chapter, stating what documents they were lacking. And so I explained this to Mr. Hale that, this is already in the works. It's kind of late in the running now to even propose this, but, he was saying, because I understand that, but, we're gonna constantly get hit with this. I think the other thing that needs to take place is just a slew of things such as the intergovernmental agreement, which I believe DOJ came up with another acronym for, the ISOUA. So, all these things are just kind of getting updated, I guess, with each term. But in any sense, that was part of the things that, the issues that were brought up by Mr. Hale. And he was saying, we could always discuss this, and maybe if the chapters are up for it, we could discuss this more. But with this ARPA thing looming over our heads, and with NOST chapters having to meet a deadline again with this Friday at 3 p.m., I don't know how Delegate Daniels is gonna, accept that idea. So I had just put it back to Mr. Hale that, I can put word out to see if the two chapters would be willing to, take that into discussion and see how it goes from there. I said, I know this ARPA deadline is coming up. We just don't know if that could be squeezed in. And so with that being said, that's where it's at right now. And that's why Tsapi Ken had the question regarding Head Start. And so where I'm honestly kind of at a loss too, because I wouldn't know how to answer that, other than the fact that, on the NOST chapter's perspective, Delegate Daniels, on behalf of Delegate Daniels, the ARPA proposals were already submitted, pre-reviewed. Now they're going on to their second review. And this was all to see if we could try to get a legislation dropped by the certain timeline to meet the fall session. But we also have Delegate Daniels on the line, and this was all explained the last few meetings we've had with the NOST chapters. So that's just my feedback on this part. Thank you.
Chair, this is Darlene.
Bless you. Ms. Draper, this is Roland Smolkanen. I have a question on the CJN 29-22. I believe Head Start is not mentioned in that. Am I correct, or?
Head Start was not, let me go back to the allocation table at the beginning of the slide. Give it just a moment here.
And just wanted to let everybody know that I did drop the link for the Google presentation in the chat, as well as the ARPA website, just so you guys all know.
Thank you.
Chair, this is Darlene.
Yes, Darlene.
Okay. Well,
Ms.
Mrs.
Draper is looking for the.
Yes. I see her on the screen, so she's the intergovernmental agreement. We have been working on that too with our senior center, and also this is Darlene Pino, Natchez on chapter vice president. The intergovernmental agreement, senior center, though Head Start. And since we have one that we received last year with regards to senior center. However, it hasn't been brought to the agreement has not been brought to the chapter meetings for the resolution portion of it. And the same thing with the Head Start. And then I forward all the information to DOJ last year regarding the intergovernment agreement, the agreement documents. Okay. And I had some questions, so I submitted those and corresponded with him and Mr. Roderick, and then he responded back by saying that it's been some of these agreements are being revised. That was the end of it. So we have not received the revision of some of those agreements. One with the senior center was very lengthy. And then the other ones were the Head Start. We had from previous administration at our chapter, there was one in place but then since we got on, we were asked to do a renewal. So with our situation, as far as I understand, with the communication with DOJ, that since it was being revised, the actual agreement, intergovernmental agreement, that we haven't moved any forward with the senior center and also the Head Start. I just wanted to add that with the notice on Ajiki, non-national Hasa Lehiki. Thank you.
Shinatani, when you ask a question, can you just ask one question? Don't make it like they link to each other. Abahazunigo, please, because we have a short time here. Ms. Draper, if the Head Start and if they're not in this legislation, that would mean they have to amend the whole legislation?
The division or DOTI economic, I'm sorry. Division of Diné Education Department did not receive an allocation through the CJN 29-22. However, the allocations under Section 3 chapter and regional projects for the LGA and non-LGA certified chapters, the chapters, if they would like to, can assist the Head Start with providing the staff to have the Head Start become operational. So that's one, and you would prepare the government units for that request. But if it's a request for a renovation to the chapter house, to the Head Start building and or the senior center, if the chapter is requesting to add the Head Start project to their 8.8 million, they may do so. They will prepare the scope of work and identify a project budget that they would like to assist with for the Head Start project. And they would develop their scope of work on how, for the purposes of the ARPA funds, how is the Head Start project, one, to support COVID-19 public health and economic response by addressing COVID-19 and its impacts on public health. 2, provide premium pay to eligible workers performing essential work. 3, provide government services up to the amount of revenue lost due to the pandemic. And 4, make necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Is the chapter going to be pursuing the Head Start project?
Chair?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Chair.
Yes, Madam Vice President. Yes, for.
Hi. First of all, I'd like to apologize for my question. I think it got us way off track. We haven't really discussed whether or not we're going to do the Head Start route. It was just a question that was posed an hour before this presentation. And what I was really trying to figure out is whether or not an emergency meeting tomorrow would make a difference regarding Head Start. And it seems to me it won't. So I was just looking at my schedule, trying to see if I really need to free up time, or if this discussion, the Head Start discussion, could wait. And I think it's a far reach, and I think as far as hiring goes, it would have to be from the Department of Education, because I think they have their own fee schedules and whatever else they work on. So that was really why I was asking the question. If there wasn't anything that was directly related to that, I apologize for railroading and getting you guys off track. So
Yeah, thank you, Madam Vice President. Ms. Draper, can we get back on track on your previous presentation?
Yes.
Chair, I have a
Thank-
question.
Who has a question?
Is Deller question?
Oh,
on
Shtai, you have
applicant.
the floor.
So being that under your category expenses, you were stating that for pandemic or loss of revenue, I don't know if you have the ability to go back to that. But I was going to ask, would it be possible to utilize some of this ARPA funding for hazard pay or anything like that, as far as what happened back during the height of the pandemic? I mean, we had our not chapter officials, but we had staff go out to the community. They were provided those hazards, but unfortunately, the nation didn't provide any of the funding to ensure that the staff was covered for that. And so being that everybody else got hazard pay and chapters were left out, I'm just wondering if this fund could also reimburse chapters for that.
Yes, you would prepare the application for the government units, for government unit application. And then your expenditure category. If you are going to be requesting for the reimbursement or you're requesting for hazard pay, you would use the 4.1 under the premium pay expenditure category 4 for premium pay. And public sector employees, the expenditure category number is 4.1. And with the premium pay to do with personnel, you really want to get the supporting documents such as the timesheets for that period of time when that employee performed that essential work. So you would get your timesheets and your reporting for that length of time for that hazard pay that you would like to submit for. Does that help answer your question, sir?
That answers my question. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Can I add to that?
Yes. Yes, please.
Technically, we can't tell you what to use your 8.8 million for. If you have an idea to pay staff premium pay, we can help you put the application together or make sure that you have the application sufficient so that it can be submitted to DOJ. It's DOJ that will give you the eligibility determination. It is, I mean, it is a category number. So there is a premium pay. So I just want to add that. And then I think, and then ultimately, if you're, so one delegate region, for example, the amount is 8.8 million, but the delegate region, I believe there was a delegate we met with here today in DCD, or DCD, our conference room. And he's received a total amount of Appendix A submissions. His chapters have completed the Appendix A submission, and it's amounting to around $12 million. It's ultimately at the delegates' selection to begin trimming down that 12 million to what will be an 8.8 million expenditure. So I guess it's in your community's best interest to think of an expenditure plan, think of a project, but also have a backup project as well. Because if it comes down to it, what if your delegate or a delegate says, well, I like this project, but I also like this other project too. I mean, with all due respect, that's where you're representing your community and submitting these projects. And keep in mind, I don't believe I'm fully aware of what Delegate Herman Daniels has determined. Is it an equal distribution, or I'm generally speaking, for the most part, many of the 24 delegates are doing a equal distribution. I know one delegate that offered to do an equal distribution, but 2 or 3 of the chapters on their own offered additional funds to 2 other chapters so that the 2 other chapters could complete a much needed project. So internally, the chapters made an agreement not to go with the equal distribution. So I just want to say that, we can focus on the questions, and these are really good questions. But you have to take it through DOJ. We'll help you prepare those applications, but DOJ might say you can do premium pay for staff maybe after June 5th of last year, not June, March 3rd of last year, etc. So DOJ might give you some, they might give you some feedback as to what to make or how to make the document sufficient. But then from there, it's between you and your delegate to legislate that. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yellowman. Carrying on with the Appendix A application, carrying on under Part 2, expenditure plan details. For A, it states describe the programs and or projects to be funded, including how the funds will be used, for what purposes, the locations to be served, and what COVID-related needs will be addressed. The preparer will provide the response below here in this fillable box. If there's a supporting document for the response, the preparer will check the checkbox, document attached, and provide it behind the Appendix A application. The next question is B, explain how the program or projects will benefit the Navajo Nation, Navajo communities, or Navajo people. The preparer will provide the response below here. If there's a supporting document for the response, the preparer will check the checkbox, document attached, and provide it behind the Appendix A application. The next question under Part 2 expenditure plan details is C, provide a prospective timeline showing the estimated date of completion of the project and or each phase of the project. Disclose any challenges that may prevent you from incurring costs for all funding by December 31st, 2024, and or fully expending funds and completing the programs or projects by December 31st, 2026. The preparer will insert the response below in the fillable section. If there's a supporting document for the response, the preparer will check the checkbox, document attached, and provide it behind the Appendix A application. The next question under Part 2 expenditure plan detail is D, identify who will be responsible for implementing the program or project. The preparer will provide the response below here. If there's a supporting document for this response, the preparer will check the checkbox, document attached, and provide it behind the Appendix A application. The next question under part 2, expenditure plan detail, is E. Explain who will be responsible for operations and maintenance costs for the project once completed and how such costs will be funded prospectively. The preparer will provide the response below here. If there's a supporting document for the response, the preparer will check the checkbox document attached and provide it behind the Appendix A application. The next question under part 2, expenditure plan detail, is F. State which of the 88 fiscal recovery fund expenditure categories in the U.S. Department of the Treasury Appendix 1 listing the proposed program or project falls under, and explain the reason why. The preparer will provide the response below here. If there's a supporting document for this response, the preparer will check the checkbox, document attached, and provide it behind the Appendix A application. For submissions with multiple expenditure categories under the response for F, the preparer of the application will simply duplicate the original application and only make changes to the response to F to identify the next expenditure category. For example, the original application was for 2.1 expenditure category. They'll duplicate the original application, and on the duplicated application, the response for F, they'll insert the next expenditure category number, and that's 2.2. The Department of Justice will not, will return any applications that list more than 2 expenditure categories under the response for F, and they will request that you submit an expenditure category for each expenditure category number. Are there any questions under this response for F? There are no questions. We will carry on to part 3, additional documents. And it states, list here all additional supporting documents attached to this FRF expenditure plan. And per the BFS 3121 resolution, it states that an approved chapter resolution must be submitted with each Appendix A application. Other types of examples of supporting documentation to attach to your Appendix A application is 1, IHS support letters, 2, Navajo Nation OEH support letter, 3, community support letter, 4, client list, 5, cost estimate, 6, map and GIS coordinates. These are types of examples of supporting documents that may be included with your Appendix A application. Continuing on to part 4, affirmation by funding recipient. Funding recipient affirms that its recipient of fiscal recovery funds and implementation of the FRF expenditure plan shall be in accordance with resolution number CJY-41-21, the ARPA regulations, and with all applicable federal and Navajo Nation laws, regulations, and policies. The chapter preparer will sign here, followed by the chapter CSC will sign here, and approved by the chapter president or vice president will sign here. Approved by the chapter ASO will sign here, and approved to submit for review to the ARPA DOJ would be the signature of the NNFRF division director will sign on page 2 of the Appendix A application. This completes our overview of the Appendix A application. It's 2 pages long, and we have completed part 1, identification of the parties, part 2, expenditure plan detail, and part 3, additional documents, and part 4, affirmation by funding recipients. Once the Appendix A application has been completed, the preparer The preparer will prepare the next document, and that is the Appendix B, the Navajo Nation Budget Summary, located at the Office of Management and Budget website at www.omb.navajo-nsn.gov. Upon arriving to the OMB website, you will navigate to the budget forms. For fiscal year 2023, the budget form is here, budget form 1, and you click the Excel and it will open up the program budget summary form 1. The preparer of the application will sign here, followed by the DCD director will sign here on the budget form. For the non-certified chapters, we requested information from the FRF office on the signatures required on the program budget summary forms. And for the LGA certified chapters and the non-certified chapters. For the certified chapters, the chapters can sign here, and then the DCD director will sign here. But for the non-certified chapters, the DCD director will sign here, followed by the chief of staff, Mr. Paulson Choclo, will sign here on the budget form for the non-government certified chapter. We are requesting that clarification from the FRF office. However, in the meantime, they did verify that this was the format to follow, where the chapters sign here on budget form 1, and then the DCD director signs here, approved by. The other budget forms requested from the FRF office are budget form 2. And the chapter preparer will sign here, followed by the DCD director will sign here. The other budget form is budget form 4, detailed budget and justification. And the Appendix J, the project budget schedule. And on the project budget schedule, the preparer under part 1 will leave the space business unit number, leave that space blank. For project title, the preparer will provide the project title here and the project description right below here. And this would be the original budget, and that would be the selection here, original budget. And below where the red arrows are, this would be for fiscal year 2023 through 2024. And under part 2 at the very top in the right-hand corner, project information, the preparer will provide the information for the project type, the planned project start date, and the planned end date. And the project manager for the project, if known, that name would be provided here. And scrolling a little further down, this box highlighted in yellow, this is where the preparer will insert the project budget information. And depending on how many quarters it would take to implement the project, the preparer will simply divide it by the number of quarters it would take, and that would equal the project total right here. Are there any questions on the Appendix B, the Navajo Nation budget forms at this time?
Yeah.
Okay. And your question, sir? I'm sorry, did you say you had a question? I didn't hear a response back if there was a question, but I'm not hearing anything coming in on my side.
Chair,
Yes, I can hear you now.
Ms. Draper, say the project has been submitted and can say it was submitted by the manager, can later on say if an official wants to look at it, can they get access to it?
Yes, to the Appendix A application.
Yes.
Yes, yes, they can.
Okay, thank you. Somebody was asking a question. Can you identify yourself, please?
Chair, this is Elsie.
Oh, Deji, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Shayla. When you actually go into the OMB website where it lists the fiscal year forms 23, 22, and so on, when you even click on the Excel link for the budget forms, Appendix J is not in there. And that was the question I have been trying to pose all afternoon. The only one I could locate was in fiscal year 2022. And that one, the second to the bottom of those, the form list is where it shows the project budget schedule. So in fiscal year 23 forms, under budget forms, again, the Excel spreadsheet, there's no Appendix J. So I just wanted to point that out, unless I'm looking at a different website, but this is the OMB website. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Let's see here. Let me navigate over to the OMB website here really quickly.
Good afternoon. I have a question. This is Elizabeth White from Benelli. Chantal.
I'll put you in the queue, Shud.
My question is, for the fiscal year, do we continue to use FY 022 or we change it to FY 24?
If your project is going into lapsing into the next fiscal year, you want to reference that it's going into the next fiscal year.
So it would be 2024.
Yes.
And as far as the program title, we continue to use the business unit as it appears on the form, on budget form 1, for example, business unit 10-5001 and office of which is OMB. We continue with those. All right, we don't change anything, even in the program manager's printed name. So the manager signs there and submit it by. In our case, for Shanto Community Governance, would be the governance manager.
On the budget form at the bottom, yes, the preparer will sign here. The program manager or the chapter manager will sign here.
Okay, all right. That was one of the difficulties that I was having. The same for budget form 2. I included 2024 and then just filled it out with our projects. But budget form 5, since we don't know the details, I just put not applicable.
Yes, for the form 5, that would be more applicable until after the expenditure plan has been approved and signed by President Nez, when you're going in for procurement and you're going to be hiring for staff. At that time, you would utilize that one if it's applicable to your project.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, ma'am. And going back to the Appendix J, the Appendix J question, on OMB's website, they only have listed the project budget schedule from 2022. And that's the one that I've been referencing. I see that they haven't included the 2023 one yet on the website. And so the 2022 one is the one that I referenced inside the presentation slide. And that's the Appendix J, the project process schedule. Are you able to see my screen? I'm on OMB's website.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, yes, under fiscal year 2022 forms, it's the project budget schedule. That's the Appendix J. And when you click on the Excel sheet, it will download. And I'll try to switch my screens here to see if you can see the Excel. Are you able to see the Excel spreadsheet?
No, we're not able to see it.
Okay, I'll stop sharing and then I'll share again.
Yes, we can see it.
Look, on the OMB website, you'll click on the project budget schedule, and then it'll populate this budget form here. The project budget schedule. So this is what the project budget schedule looks like. And the one I use in the presentation again is from 2022. The one for 2023 has not been made available online yet through the OMB website.
Ms. Draper,
Yes,
who populates this Excel spreadsheet? Is it done by OMB or?
yes, it's done by the Office of Management and Budget. They populate the spreadsheets per fiscal year.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then the upcoming Navajo Nation deadline dates to remember is July 1st, 2024. Per resolution CJY 41-21. And in the Navajo Nation Council will review the FRF approved projects per the CJN 2922 resolution to identify the amounts that have been obligated and the amounts that have not been obligated. And the Navajo Nation Council will run this report at July 1st, 2024.
Ms. Draper, you're still showing your Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me switch back my screens back over and I'll navigate back to the presentation. Are you able to see my presentation slide?
Yes.
Okay. The first date to remember is number 1, July 1st, 2024. At this date, leadership per the CJY 4121 will run a report of the projects that were approved under the CJN-2922 to identify the amounts that have been obligated and the amounts that are unobligated. So that report will be generated on July 1st, 2024. The next deadline date is number 2, September 30th, 2024. Per the CJN 29-22 resolution states at 5:00 p.m., ARPA funds that remain unobligated and unencumbered will be returned to the Office of the Controller, OOC. This is the deadline to encumber funds through contract. Per the delegate region plans need to be encumbered at this date by 5:00 p.m. The next deadline date is number 3, September 30th, 2026. And per the CJN 29-22 resolution at 5:00 p.m., ARPA funds that remain unexpended will be returned to the Office of the Controller, OOC. Are there any questions on the upcoming Navajo Nation deadline dates?
Ms. Draper, I think that a frequent question is, say this unobligated and unencumbered money, the funds go back to the nation. I think that the way some people are thinking that we can reapply for it, is that what's going to happen?
Per the resolution CJN 29-22, it simply states that the funds that remain unexpended will return back to the FRF funding pot. It doesn't provide further processes, procedures, or guidance on how that ARPA funding pot will be utilized.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Carrying on with the presentation, the upcoming federal deadline dates are 1, December 31st, 2024. ARPA funds that remain unobligated and unencumbered will be returned to the U.S. Department of Treasury at this date. The second federal deadline date is number 2, December 31st, 2026. ARPA funds that remain unexpended will be returned to the U.S. Department of Treasury at this date. Are there any questions on the upcoming federal deadline dates?
Any questions from the audience?
No question.
Thank you. On our next slide, we are displaying the Navajo Nation Fiscal Recovery Funds chapter and regional projects as per the CJN-29-22 Section 3 flowchart. And it begins with the delegate prepares a preliminary delegate region project plan for $8,802,340.00. When the preliminary project plan has been developed, the delegate, the Navajo Nation Fiscal Recovery Fund Office, and an FRF and the DCD will prepare or revise Appendix A application forms, Appendix B, and Request for Services, RFS for short, forms. When this has been completed by the delegate, the FRF office, and DCD, along with the chapters, it will move over to the NNFRF office, and they will sign and submit the expenditure plan to the Department of Justice. And this is where the Appendix A application would be signed off by Mr. Platero on the second page. When it moves towards the initial eligibility determination, the Department of Justice will complete the initial eligibility determination. They will review the Appendix A, Appendix B, and the supporting documentation. If there is request for additional documentation from Department of Justice, the Department of Justice will notify the delegate, NNFRF, and DCD, and we will come back and prepare or revise Appendix A, Appendix B, and the request for services form. When we have gathered the supporting documentation to strengthen our Appendix A application, and we resubmit to Department of Justice, that will be considered the second submittal. On that second submittal, if the Department of Justice deems the project is eligible to receive ARPA funding request, it will move down, yes, to the next tier on the flow chart, where the delegate will prepare a final comprehensive list of projects totaling the $8,802,340. When completed there, the delegate will submit the final comprehensive list of projects. He will submit the list to the NNFRF office. The Navajo Nation Fiscal Recovery Fund office will prepare the packet and conduct another preliminary review of the entire expenditure plan packet. When completed, the FRF office will send the final packet to the delegate, and the delegate will send the final packet to the Office of Legislative Counsel, OLC for short. When OLC receives the expenditure packet for $8,802,340.00, they will prepare a draft legislation. When the draft legislation is completed by the Office of Legislative Counsel, it will then move to the Navajo Nation Council to approve the resolution. Once the resolution is approved by the Navajo Nation Council, it will move over to the President's office to sign the expenditure packet into law. Thereafter, once the expenditure packet is signed into law by President Nez, it will have an established resolution number, and that resolution number will be referenced for the expenditure plan packet for the $8,802,340. And thereafter, that approved packet with the new resolution number will be sent to the FRF office, where they will be working with the Office of Management and Budget and the DDCD in preparing the business unit numbers for the projects. At this time, are there any questions on the flow chart?
Yes, Ms. Draper. I know how long a legislation takes, say when the delegate gives it to Office of Legislative. From there, can you give us an idea? It might be different. It might be different, like case by case, but what would be the time frame, just to give us an idea how long it takes to process a legislation?
The time frame to process the legislation for these ARPA expenditure plan packets per Section 3, they are keeping attention and eye to these expenditure packets as they come in. They have not provided us a timeline of how many days it would take for Office of Legislative Counsel to prepare the draft legislation, but we can follow up with Ms. Dana Barbroff to get that estimated time frame on how long it would take her office to complete, or excuse me, to prepare that legislative packet.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Draper.
You're welcome, sir. And we have no chapters have gone. So as the chapters start entering that Office of Legislative Counsel box, we'll be able to provide better estimated timeframes on how long chapters are going through that preparation of the legislation, the draft legislation. As chapters begin to submit their expenditure packet, we'll take note of how many days, the time frame that it's taking for OLC to prepare those draft legislations.
Chair, I got a question.
Yes.
Dillard.
Yes, you have the floor, Staff.
I just got a quick question. So let's say that hypothetically the council delegate selects items, but you know, some of them they'll go through the DOJ process, and we let's say we have extra funding that we don't reach the whole $8 million, I guess, and I guess we have time to submit for another project, correct? So like, it's not like a one-time deal. Hey, you get your packages together, and if you don't make the cut, then you don't get the ability to utilize the rest of the funding. So I guess, do we have that ability to come back and go back to the drawing board and submit packages to reach the $8 million that's eligible for the region?
Per the resolution, the CJN 2922, in the resolution, it states that one expenditure plan packet will be submitted for the delegate region, and that one expenditure plan packet must total $8,802,340.00. If the region does not meet that 8.8 limit, and you're, for example, only submit for 8.1, that remaining amount, you cannot piecemeal the expenditure plan packet together. It would have to go together as one packet totaling the 8.8 million. Does that make sense, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Are there any other questions on the flow chart at this time? If there are no further questions on the flow chart, we will move to the draft expenditure plan. The draft expenditure plan I'm presenting on the screen today is a draft. We do have recommendations from Office of Legislative Counsel and Department of Justice in the format of the draft expenditure plan. But thus far, this is what DCD has developed for the chapter delegate regional expenditure plans, and it is subject to change, but at this time, this is what we do have available for the chapters as they're nearing the completion of their draft expenditure plans. It begins with the very top, identifying the projects that are proposed under the LGA certified chapters and the non-LGA certified chapters. The chapters will insert their chapter name on the first column, the project name on the second column, and then their project budget. And then the same information for the non-LGA certified chapters, the chapter name, project name, and the project budget. There's also available spaces for government units applications, if applicable, and Navajo Nation owned entities box, if applicable, external entities, if applicable, and the regional plan where chapters, where two or more chapters are coming together to cost share one project. We do have a box for that project here under the regional plan. And once the preparers fill in the boxes here per entity, at the very bottom of the expenditure plan detail, it'll provide subtotals for the LGA certified chapters, the non-LGA certified chapters, the government units, the Navajo Nation owned entities, the external entities, and the regional project plan where two or more chapters are coming together to cost share one project. In total, the subtotals here in total will be totaled up at the bottom here. The total must not exceed the $8,802,340.00 that was allocated per CJN 2922 under section 3, the chapter and delegate regional project plan. Are there any questions on the draft expenditure plan at this time?
Question, Elsie.
You have the floor, Shadeja.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Shayla, question. The expenditure plan you just went over now. Now that's not a form that the chapters complete, but this is only for the delegate. Is that it? Because we don't want to confuse the chapters thinking that this is an extra form they need to fill out. So can you justify or clarify that? Thank you.
Yes, Elsie. This draft expenditure plan, this would be for the delegate, the LDA, the FRF office, and the DCD. We would complete this form together, and we would get the approved expenditure plans per chapter, and we would organize it according to LGA, non-LGA, government units, Navajo Nation owned entities, external entities, or a regional cost sharing project. We would arrange those expenditure plans accordingly to each one of these sections if it pertains to. And then at the bottom, that'll where it'll total up the entire expenditure plan packet for the delegate region. And so yes, the delegate would complete this draft expenditure plan, and it would go on top of the 8.8 million expenditure plan packet that was submitted by the chapters. Does that help clarify, Elsie?
Yes, thank you. Because with all these forms that are coming up, I'm making the assumption that the chapters will come back and say, wait, there's another form. And you know, it's gonna kind of put them in a frenzy. So again, that's just what I wanted to point out, is that it's emphasized that it's the delegate and the LDA and not the chapters that complete this form. Thank you.
And I'll further add comments onto this presentation slide to indicate that this is for the delegate to prepare and not the chapters, so that we can alleviate any type of confusion going forward here. Okay, and for continuing on with the CJN 2922, our next slide is the subrecipient agreement between the Navajo Nation and LGA certified chapter for subaward of American Rescue Plan Act fiscal recovery funds for purposes of EP, EP name and eligibility category. EP stands for expenditure plan, name, and eligibility category. This is what the first page of the subrecipient agreement looks like for the LGA certified chapters who wish to draw down the funds to the chapter level and implement their project at the chapter level. It begins with the name of the subrecipient, and that would be the LGA certified chapter, the LGA certified chapter's phone number, the name and title of the person authorized to accept funding for the subrecipient, designated official, the designated official's address, and the subrecipient's mailing address, the subrecipient's employer identification number, the subrecipient's DUNS number and unique entity number, federal awarding agency, federal award identification number, federal award date, and expenditure plan title, the period of performance, and the amount of the subaward. And that's the first page of the subrecipient agreement. Within this subrecipient agreement, it includes and incorporates 10 appendixes, and 1 is the terms and conditions. Number 2, Appendix A is the scope of work. Number 3, Appendix B is budget. Number 4, Appendix C is the disbursement schedule. Number 5, Appendix D is the expenditure plan. Number 6, Appendix E council resolution approving the expenditure plan. And this Appendix E, this would be the expenditure plan for the delegate region that's totaling the $8.8 million. So when that expenditure plan is approved and signed into law by President Nez, we will further add that entire resolution packet here as Appendix E for the subrecipient agreement for LGA certified chapters. The next one, number 7, Appendix F, interagency agreement between the U.S. Department of Treasury and the Navajo Nation. Number 8, Appendix G, the U.S. Department of Treasury compliance and reporting guidance for SLFRF. Number 9, Appendix H, subrecipients W9. Number 10, Appendix I, subrecipients certificate of good standing from the Business Regulatory Department. And number 11, Appendix J, certificate of insurance. These are the items that are listed that must be included with the subrecipient agreement for the LGA certified chapters. At DCD, we are working with the chapter unit attorney, Mr. Roderick Begay, on identifying the process procedures and a little orientation dedicated to the LGA certified chapters on how to prepare this subrecipient agreement. We plan to hold a orientation speaking directly only to the subrecipient agreement for the LGA certified chapters in a future coming date. At this time, we are focusing on Section 3, the expenditure plan detail. And once that is complete, we will then move into the orientation and trainings for the LGA certified chapters. We wanted to include the information in our presentation this afternoon so that the chapters are aware that there is a subrecipient agreement available for LGA certified chapters and what the requirements are per the items 1 through 11. That's included in our presentation slide this afternoon. And available also on our website is our ARPA funding calendar to plan your future work session dates, along with a template agenda. So this afternoon, this concludes our presentation on the preparation of the Appendix A applications and the draft expenditure plan. Are there any questions at this time?
Any questions for Natani? I think Mr. Sombrero is trying to say something. I see his mouth moving, but no sound on this end.
Mr. President.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Yazzie. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We're at the tail end of the presentation. I want to first appreciate the time spent on the presentation. I think this puts a little bit more light on the process and procedures for the expenditures of the ARPA funds. I had several questions, but some of them were preempted by questions that were posed. One of them was how the unexpended ARPA funds was going to be utilized, meaning that, let's say, a region was given 8 million plus, and they only expended less than the 8 million. Let's say 500,000. How was that going to be put back into pot with that? That's my understanding. But beyond that, who would determine what to do with the money from all the 110 chapters that there's excess money or money that has not been expended? That is the one question that I have. The other one is a concern that I have, not necessarily for our chapter, our region, but other regions coming with the upcoming election. There'll be some chapters getting new delegates or new delegate for chapter, region, whatever. I think that would be a chore in itself, and they need to be really be trained with presentations that we're having right now. That's what I just wanted to say. But really, the expenditure of the money that will not will not be expended. How's that going to be determined? Who's the person that will say we'll go ahead and give the money back to the federal government, or maybe just use it for other projects, pending projects? Yeah. And then the other question, I think, might be an echo question with some of the previous comments, and that basically is for Shanto. Well, actually, NOST region. Do all the chapters, the 4 chapters, have to submit their project proposals before their proposals are reviewed and approved? Or do they have to collectively do that, or do they have to be considered individually? Yeah, if my question is answered, I'll appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions, Mr. Yazzie. On that last one, where the 4 chapters submit, the 4 chapters for the projects that you're wishing to submit for ARPA funding requests, if they haven't completed an initial eligibility determination with DOJ and given an expenditure category number, it would need to complete a review with the DOJ office, and that's completed through preparing the Appendix A application that we just reviewed in the presentation, and then also preparing the Budget Form 1, where we also reviewed in the presentation as well. We locate that Budget Form 1 on the OMB website, and that is how we initiate the ARPA funding request. To see if your project is eligible to receive ARPA funds. And the next question was the upcoming, you were concerned with the upcoming election and how the funds.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to state that for the future, when the ARPA funds go back into if they go at the deadline, when the funds get sent back to the Office of the Controller, in the legislation CJN 2922, it simply states that it will go back to the ARPA funding pot. At that time, it would be up to the leadership. It would be up to leadership to decide how they will expend that remaining funds that weren't expended or obligated. So that would be a leadership decision, sir. I hope I answered your questions.
Pretty much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for participating this afternoon as well.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Ella.
Yes.
On those, we said we have to use that council delegate resolution. If it's divided into region, would we need a regional resolution for each delegate that got the money? So they won't just like next month take it back or anything. They will hold it until 2023, 2026. Thank you.
I apologize, ma'am. I was having a really hard time hearing your question. It was muffled on my end. May you repeat it, please?
Okay, this is Ella. the resolution regional hat neneki ada Stosh la anana liago biga okoye yo up to 2026 while we're doing the rough draft on our project budget, so all this that we're doing. This is Ella, thanks.
Thank you, Ella. Yes, you may include your projects on one chapter resolution, and the projects would be the life of the project, and that would be to the December 31st, 2026.
Oh, I mean the regional, like NOST will have a resolution from the delegate. Would that be one of them, or we just go by the council delegate?
No, the NOS will submit a resolution with that regional project. For the regional project, yes.
So that means we have to have, oh, sorry, Chair. Chair, can I make a
Oh,
comment?
yes, yes, Shita, you have the floor.
So that means we have to have a regional meeting before we submit the packages, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And for the, if it's a cost sharing project, we are requesting to have the group reach out to the chapter unit attorney, Mr. Roderick Begay, to also further incorporate an intergovernmental agreement to identify which chapter will be taking the lead for the project on behalf of the other projects. And within the intergovernmental agreement, the chapters will further identify roles and responsibilities. For example, one chapter may be responsible for coordinating the meetings. One chapter may be responsible for processing payments. And one chapter may be responsible for the point of contact with the project engineer or the project manager. You would want to set up internal roles and responsibilities for the cost sharing project. Does that make sense, sir?
That makes sense, but it's kind of, it's a time pressure that we've added onto the NOST meeting region. So being that we have a time deadline that's going to be ending this week, I believe, the end of this week.
Yes.
Then that's going to require all of us to make quorum by Sunday in order for an item to be dropped in the fall session. From what this is my understanding is that's what our goal is, to try to meet the fall session timeline.
Okay.
Chair,
Yes, Madam Vice President, you have the floor.
Ms. Draper, are you calling cost sharing all of the submittals or one project that's being, I guess, shared by all of the chapters? Do you just mean individual projects, or is it like maybe a regional project that you call cost sharing?
It would be the regional project where two or more chapters are coming together to fund one project. If that is occurring with your group, are you entertaining a regional project where your two or more chapters are coming together to fund one project?
I do not think so.
Okay. If
I could be wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
If the chapters aren't coming together to fund one project regionally for the delegates' regional area, then that intergovernmental agreement would not qualify. You would simply then just every chapter that's preparing an Appendix A application for ARPA funding requests, they'll simply attach a resolution per Appendix A. So for each request, they'll attach that chapter resolution. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think that was where the misunderstanding was. So thank you.
Okay,
Thank
yes.
you for the clarification.
I'm glad we got that clarified. There's no need to make an additional step there.
Okay.
Chair,
Yes. Can you identify yourself, please?
this is Elsie.
Oh, yes, you have the floor, David.
Okay, I think this was just additional information. I'm sorry. Thank you again for allowing me to speak. The cost sharing, from what I've seen so far with all the proposals submitted from each of the 4 chapters, it's only their own projects. There's no shared project among 2 or more of the chapters. So I think this cost sharing thing and the additional supporting document wouldn't be necessary. I'm sorry, I had missed a portion because I was also typing up something else on my laptop. So just to clarify that each of the 4 chapters, they've submitted their own proposals, whether it was 2 or 3 or 4. So that's what I want to put in there.
Okay. Yes, I'm glad we got that clarified as well. Then no, you don't need to do an agreement, and you don't need to reach out to Robert Begay for that intergovernmental agreement. You don't need to do that. You would simply just proceed with your Appendix A, your Appendix B, your chapter resolution, and any supporting data that would go along for your project. That was what you would package for your ARPA funding request. Thank you, everybody, for allowing DCD to present this afternoon.
Yes, Ms. Draper, thank you for the information. And those of you that called in, I recommend that you log on next time. Get on your computer, because this presentation was valuable just looking at where to find these informational websites. I know through the phone you just listen and you don't have any visual. Like Shache, he's looking at the monitor now, and Shache, Mr. Sombrero. I like to pick on him because he's always out there on his toes for his community. Thank you, Ms. Draper, Shimana, Dr. Yellowman, for providing the information. I know we have more questions, and maybe we can communicate through your email or something. Is that possible? Shadej, it looks like you have your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I just also want to reiterate that the attachments that Shayla went over today, those were forwarded to the chapter emails. And I did indicate in those chapter emails to forward to your respectable subcommittees. So those were sent forward. The Appendix J that she had also talked about today, that was also sent out. The fiscal year 23 budget forms, Appendix A, both for certified and non-certified, a checklist, and just additional information. And those were sent out last week leading up to today. So if you guys want to look at your email, that will indicate, what the Appendix A that she was talking about. So that's just the other thing I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shadej. Any other questions before we log off?
I have something to say.
Okay. You have the floor, Trey.
Oh, yeah, Asia Che. Joe, I just want to express my appreciation and gratitude to Elsie for all her information and being able to try to get us to understand a lot of this stuff. Although finding all the different things that need to be put together. There's not enough that we could say in regards to your assistance and all that we do. I think that you are one of the best LDAs that we've ever had. From our though I can speak for my office here. And I pretty much appreciate you going out on the limb to ensure that we get all our ducks in a line and so forth. Even today, I'm trying to go back and forth, trying to fix this and that. So, but I think I'm the only one that's already on top of everything, and that I'm almost done with what I need to do to get everything situated. So, but I just want to say yeah to Elsie, our LDA for this region. So that's all I wanted to say. Yeah, for your time.
Chair,
Yes.
Mrs. Dellard. I
Yeah,
just want to remind everybody on the call that this meeting was recorded. So again, everybody was provided that email to the SharePoint site. So you guys have the ability to go to that site and view this video again. And if you have any more additional questions or anything like that. So you have that ability to go there and review this video. So, and please share it with the other people who didn't make it. And so that way they can take a look at it. So again, go on to YouTube. You can type in NOST Regional Council and it should be there.
Okay. Thank you, Shida, for sharing that with us. I know the two chapters, Natsan and Holjeto and Shanto, we have our Club C logged on to it. They're listening and they're watching this and they're taking part of this. And thank you for putting this on your shoulders and running with the ball for your community. Yeah, to their Club C members.
Oh, Chair, I'm sorry. This is Patricia Blackhorn, Navajo Mountain Chapter. May I have the floor, please, just for like a minute?
Okay, you have the floor.
Chair, I really appreciate you giving me the floor. I just want to say thank you to and with Mr. Sombrero, since you're thanking everyone. I'm going to include you, Dillard. Thank you. I'm going to include you, and Ella. I'm going to include you. Also the other chapter official, Russell. What we've been trying to get this point and Klepsy, and thank you, Deshni. My question was with the video. We want to redo it again. We did that with the first one. We watched it on the big screen all together. We're in the room, and we watched the whole thing. And I really do appreciate. You're really doing a good job, Dillard. Thank you.
Okay, with that, have a good time. If you're keeping track of time, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting at 5:22. And be safe out there, Shanatani.